This is the parting between thee and me. I will announce unto thee the interpretation of that thou couldst not bear with patience.
أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا.
As for the ship, it belonged to poor people working on the river, and I wished to mar it, for there was a king behind who was taking every ship by force.
وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا.
And as for the lad, his parents were believers, and we feared lest he should oppress them by rebellion and disbelief.
فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما.
And we intended that their Lord should change him for them, for one better in purity and nearer to mercy.
وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تسطع عليه صبرا.
And as for the wall, it belonged to two orphan boys in the city, and there was beneath it a treasure belonging to them, and their father had been righteous, and thy Lord intended that they should come to their full strength, and should bring forth their treasure as a mercy from their Lord. And I did it not upon my own command. Such is the interpretation of that wherewith thou couldst not bear.
ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا.
They will ask thee of Zulqarnain. Say, I shall recite unto you a remembrance of him.
إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا.
Lo, we made him strong in the land and gave him unto everything a road.
فأتبع سببا.
And he followed a road.
حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا.
Till when he reached the setting place of the sun, he found it setting in a muddy spring, and found a people thereabout. We said, O Zulqarnain, either punish or show them kindness.
قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا.
He said, As for him who doth wrong, we shall punish him, and then he will be brought back unto his Lord, who will punish him with awful punishment.
وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا.
But as for him who believeth and doth right, good will be his reward, and we shall speak unto him a mild command.
ثم أتبع سببا.
Then he followed a road,
حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا.
till when he reached the rising place of the sun, he found it rising on a people for whom we had appointed no shelter therefrom.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhammad Abdullah. On behalf of Islamic City, welcome. Today is the 16th fast that we are observing, and the 15th fast that we're observing, and the 16th juz that we'll be covering today with Dr. Aslam. Dr. Aslam, assalamu alaikum, welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ahmaduhu wa usalli ala rasulihil kareem. The 16th juz comprises of part of Surah Kahf, Surah Maryam, and part of Surah Taha. Surah Kahf focuses on the story of the people of the cave. It also talks about the story of the owners of two gardens. It also talks about Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's encounter with a holy man, with a spiritual person whose name is mentioned by some sources as Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, but the Quran does not talk about his name. And certainly there is a discussion among the scholars whether he was a prophet or not. Most apparently he was not, because Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was the one who was given the role of a prophet during that particular time. And then the story of Zulqarnain also comes, the story of Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam, Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam, Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam, and many other prophets appears in Surah Maryam. And then Surah Taha also has an encounter of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam with Fir'aun, and we will go to that in detail also. Surah Taha assures the Prophet and his followers that the message of Quran will eventually succeed. And the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is again brought in detail, and this is mentioned how the enemies of Islam are opposing it, and how they will not succeed. When we look at the whole juz, we find that a reference to Prophet Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam's prayer for his son, and then the birth of Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam. Then we also find reference to Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam and the miraculous birth of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. We find Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam's encounter with his father and his conversation with him about the monotheism. We also find references of all other prophets. Many of the prophets are mentioned here. We also find re-emphasis on the day of resurrection. We also find that those who are describing Isa alayhi salatu wasalam as God or Son of God, their arguments are being refuted here also. And then Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being assured that he should not distress too much as a result of the rejection that is coming from the people in his time. Rather, he should also have patience, and he should look at the stories of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and many other prophets, that how they struggled and how they overcame the obstacles. Then it also describes Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to empower him with the ability to communicate properly, and we'll come to that in a minute. It also refers to the deviation of the people of Israel in the absence of Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and all fingers were pointed to Samri, who infused the idea of shirk within those people in the absence of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and he acknowledged that role, and then he was consequently, you know, uh, was held accountable for that. And then again, the day of judgment is being mentioned here, and then how the shaitan whispers in the high hearts and minds of people and deviates, helps them, or instigate them to deviate from the right path. And then Quran finally concludes that those who are on the path of evil would eventually be defeated, where they will not succeed. So this in general is the overview of the entire juz of the Quran. Before I come to the verses that needs to be highlighted, uh, in this juz there are four stories that are mentioned. One, of course, is the people of the cave. And what is the purpose of this people of the cave? The story of the cave. We do not have any other detail than what we see in the Quran as far as the authenticity of the event is concerned. But what we know is that they were young people. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, you know, that the youth has the ability and the capacity to challenge the status quo and not to find things blindly. Because they were living at a time when the idol worshipping was common. And they left that area after trying to bring about changes in the attitude of people and not succeeding in that. They left the area so that they do not become part of that society. So, what is being said here is that the youth are the ones who challenge the status quo, are the ones who uh, do not follow blindly, who use their intellect to understand the reality. So, that's one thing. Second, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves this attitude of young people. And He ensures that they are protected. The story could be an allegorical, the story could be real. But in both sense, what the message that is coming out is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects them. They, after a long slumber, or after a long silence on their part, or after a long period of persecution, they were still there believing in what they believed in. So that is the second thing that we learn from that story. The third is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also never abandons the good and the good people. They are rewarded not only in the life hereafter also, but they are also remembered in this life also, and their stories become a source of inspiration for people to come. So even though the story is not fully explained in the sources, the Quran is not telling us the story. The Quran is telling those events and those incidents primarily to inspire us to learn certain things from that story. And the Quran is focusing on that. And the focus is the youth are not abandoned. Youth are the one who challenge the status quo. Youth are the ones who do not follow things blindly. And youth are the one who are helped and who are supported by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who are blessed by Him. So this is the story that comes from the people of the cave. Now, when we look at the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's encounter with Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, I'm using the Khidr in the common sense because I am not sure if the Quran does not mention that this is in fact the person. But in our tradition, that has come as an accepted fact. So, regardless whether we should use the name or we should not use the name, what is important to understand is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses with hikmah, with knowledge, with power of analysis and rationality to people other than the prophets themselves. The prophet, and the difference between the wise people and the prophet is that the prophet is in direct communication with the sources of the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is through angel Gabriel. And no other human being has that kind of status. It's only the prophet who receives the wahi or the revelation or the direct words of God through angel Gabriel. All other human beings have wisdom based on their intuition, based on their understanding and insight into the divine ideas and the divine guidance. And this is one of the major points that one needs to understand, that the wisdom can come from other sources also other than the prophet himself. Even though the message and the guidance will come from the prophet directly, the wisdom can come from other sources also, and it's a very significant point to understand. Because if we believe that the wisdom is also the prerogative of the prophets, and only rationality comes from them, then that Quranic guidance which asks people to think, to reflect, to contemplate, and to understand the reality becomes meaningless. Because if wisdom comes only through the prophets, then why should we even think in terms of applying our own mind and our own intellect to understand things? So that is the difference that the Quran is trying to make us know, that sometimes the knowledge and wisdom comes from. And this also proves from the life of the Prophet ﷺ that many times he accepted the opinions of other people, discarding his own opinion after being, after the companions found out from him that his decisions were not based on the wahi, his decisions were based on his personal analysis. And there were instances. So we don't have to go into those instances. So this is the difference that needs to be maintained. That needs to be understood, that the wisdom can come from others. That does not mean that the human being are directly communicated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they have the intuition and they have this analysis, the power of rationality and the guidance based on their what you call very astute and very deep understanding of the divine guidance and divine message. So it is in this particular context Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in encounter with this holy person or this spiritual person. So what is the message that is coming? That the wisdom can be found in sources other than the prophet himself. That's one thing. The second thing is that the people should have the company of the knowledgeable people. And this is something very important. And knowledgeable people, Quran is talking not only in the sense that they have the knowledge of the Quran, but they have the knowledge of every wahi that exists in this universe. The people of botany, people of zoology, people of medicine, people of engineering, they are also learning the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the wahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is spread. So you have the company of those people to enhance your understanding of the divine guidance, to have your understanding, to enhance the horizons of your knowledge. The third is that what we know is very limited. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in us the capacity to learn and to understand things, but still our knowledge is incomplete. And what he is trying to say is that it is the collective efforts of individuals that would help them understand the realities in a much better way. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is interacting with this holy person. And he's asking questions after questions about the death of the of the killing of that young person, or the destruction of that uh, boat, or the, raising the wall. All he is questioning, why is this happening? While things that I know point contrary to what is being done. So what we know is very limited. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that when we pool our resources collectively, as he pooled his resources with Musa and Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, he found out the answers, and he found out the meanings behind all those things. In the story of the two gardens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to teach us that we should learn from the calamities. And he is also telling us that we should not have this arrogant attitude. And then he is also, in the story of Zulqarnain, he is also telling us that we should be humble. And one very important thing about the story of Zulqarnain is that rather than fishing yourself for the poor and the hungry, teach them how to fish. So rather than assuming all the responsibility, empower people with the ability to change their conditions. So Zulqarnain is again telling the people who are telling him about the tribes that were destructive, that were doing harm to them, do something that they should take matters in their hand, and they should build a wall that would ensure that those people never attack, never kind of hurt them. So this is what the overall understanding of those stories is, that there is a message, that there is definitely guidance in that one. And the issue is not detail, it's not a matter of finding out what the details are, because the Quran itself points out to that. There's sometimes about the people of the cave, that some people say that there were three and the fourth of them was their dog, and that there were four and the fifth was dog. And the Quran is dismissing that kind of argument, saying that this is of no consequences, whether how many of them were there. What is important is that what happened to them and why it happened to them, and what is the purpose of the Quran for bringing up this story. And it is in this particular context that we see what is being discussed here. The other story is that of Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam, and that is also a very powerful story. And that shows the strength of a true believer. And the Quran chose Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam's story to prove that point. A single woman who is living in the seminary, in religious institutions. Without marriage, she becomes pregnant. In a very tribal and very patriarchal society, in a society which is constantly harassing those people who have this kind of situation. And she stands her ground. She faces all the accusations and all the kind of, pointing fingers, everything, but she stands her ground because she has faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She believed in what she was told. And then finally, it was her faith that helped her sail through this difficult time, and to such an extent that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam spoke in his childhood about the miraculous nature of his birth and about the role that he is assigned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in other words, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is demonstrating to us is that the faith is something that would enable people to fight off all kind of accusations and all kind of adverse situations. And look at the two stories. One is the story of Hajra alayhi salatu wasalam. The other is the story of Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. And Quran has immortalized these two women, besides many other that are mentioned there, and presented them as an example for humanity to follow their footsteps. So let's go to verse 87 and 88. Chapter 18, that is Surah Kahf. And it is about those people, those who are unjust, who commit the act of oppression, that they will face the consequences in this life, as well as they will face the consequences in the life hereafter as well. And those who are good doers, who are balanced in their life, they will receive their reward. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to say, that each and every action of human beings is being recorded and will be taken into account. Injustice will not be tolerated and will not be forgotten. It's just a matter of time. Even in this world, we hear stories that there are cases that are pending for 20 years and 25 years. In certain countries of the world, those cases are pending for 50 years, for 60 years. And yet we have no issue with those kind of pending and those kind of delays. Here the Quran is saying that things are there and things will happen at their time and the consequences will be felt. So each and every human being is reminded to be careful about their actions. And each and every human being is being given the assurance that their good work will not go waste, will not be forgotten. The same way as every evil deed will be recorded and will be put to task on in the appropriate time, whether in this life and the life hereafter as well. So that is one very important point that we need to understand. Let's go to the verse 25 to 29. This is the prayer that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is making to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he was asked to go and confront Pharaoh and challenge. So when he is making this dua, he's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to empower him with these qualities. And how do we empower? And how does Allah empower? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens our heart to learn the trade and to learn the skills so that we could develop that characteristics and that quality that is needed for that. فَقَالَ رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي. Allah, give me the strength to have full confidence on what I am saying. وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. Ensure that whatever I do, I overcome all the obstacles. Let's go to the next one. And then make sure that you give me the strength to communicate so that other people could understand what I am saying. And give me my brother as my companion, as my supporters, as my helper. Why? So that I could confidently and I could present the case before those who are the power elites. So there are 4 things that are mentioned here. First, those people who are saying things, they must have the necessary knowledge and necessary confidence in believing in what they are saying. The knowledge and then the confidence in that knowledge. When we say that God is the creator of the universe, we must have a full understanding of what we are saying, and we must have clarity of idea. When we are saying that this is the final message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are not giving an ambiguous statement, but we are making a definite statement that is to be backed up by the arguments. Third is that we should have the skills to communicate knowledge, confidence, and ability to communicate. And the fourth one is to communicate in a manner, in a language that could be understood by people. I mean, there are, for instance, if I do not know the idioms, and if I do not know the culture, if I do not know the background, if I do not know the traditions of the people of this country, and I go to them and I try to explain Islam to them within my own cultural framework, most probably I would not be able to convince them. Most probably I would not be accepted by those people because I don't speak their idiom, I don't speak their culture, I don't speak the way they think. So in order for me to make them understand what I'm saying, I must have an empathy with them. I must identify with them. I must understand what is happening. And sometime I need a teamwork. I need a people. I need a group of people. I'm not just by my own in terms of promoting these things. And this is an important message for those people who are trying to work for Islamic cause and Islamic propagation in this country and elsewhere, that they must understand the society in which we live. And unfortunately, when we look at the work of the communities here, whether in our mosques and our Islamic centers, we find that we hardly have a real understanding of the religious makeup, of the sociological makeup, of the political makeup, of the cultural makeup of the city, of the community, or the country in which we are living. How can we communicate it to our neighbors when we don't understand who they are, what they believe in, and what kind of ideas they have? Do we know that there are hundreds of the Christian sects, and each sect has different understanding of Jesus? And when we go to them with our own uniform theology about Jesus, they are baffled. They are baffled is to believe in that. And you can experiment that. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to teach us in this particular verse, even though we recite this verse quite often and almost in every, before we start our speech in any Islamic or non-Islamic conference, we begin with Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. But what is being implied is that understand your audience well before you speak. Understand your environment well before you speak. And this is what is being said. Let's go to the 44, which is in continuation of what is being said, but it is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. That when you speak, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is being asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when you speak to Fir'aun, speak in a manner that would convince him of what, or that would make him think of what you are saying, or that would basically realize, give him the opportunity to reflect and to question his own attitude. So when we are making an argument, our purpose is not to win the argument. Our purpose is to make other people think about what we believe in and make them question their own belief in relation to ours. It is not to put down others. It is not to humiliate others. It is not to say that we have all the wisdom. It is to say that we have a point of view. We are asking you to reflect on that point. We're asking you to compare it with your own viewpoint and reach to conclusion and make an understanding. So that is in relation to that, and that is another thing that we need to understand. In fact, the methodology of the communication that Quran says is something that we often neglect. We often neglect because we believe that just by reciting the verses of the Quran or by reading their translation, we would be able to, make a point and convince them. But this is not what the Quran is saying. That you have to have a strategy, you have to have methodology, you have to have skills. And that's why Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the skills that he needs and how the prayers are responded. Prayers are responded when we make efforts to achieve what we have asked from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us wealth. The sky would not open and the dollars would not come in the form of rain. You'll have to go out and work and you will have to earn. And that's how your prayer is met. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables you to have that kind of inspiration, enables you to go out to work. It is in that particular concept we say. And then the next verse is 55, which says, uh, منها خلقناكم وفيها نعيدكم ومنها نخرجكم تارة أخرى. It is about all human beings that understand where you came from, where you will return, and where you will be raised once again. You have a humble beginning, humble end, and humble resurrection. And it is for the purpose of reminding them that they have to be humble. If we look at it in the context of the stories that are mentioned in this, just we find that this is the message that is coming out, that one should focus on humility, and one should focus on one's origin, and one should never have that kind of attitude that one is superior to others, or one is better than others. Next one is, I think, 94. And it is in a dialogue between Harun alayhi salatu wasalam and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is on Mount Sinai at the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in his absence, Harun alayhi salatu wasalam is given the responsibility to take care of the people of Israel. At that particular time, Samuri, who is a magician, he plays the trick and he starts people for his own financial and for own political gains. He starts the mischief to instigate people to deviate from the right path and they start worshipping the cow. And when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam returns, he finds all these things happening. He becomes upset. He asks, what is this happening? And why did you let it happen? And the response of Harun alayhi salatu wasalam is very significant. He said, if I had done that, I might have created divisions in the community. And if I had created divisions, then we would be fighting to prove who is right and who is wrong. And the unity would have been lost. And certainly you would not have liked that. He's not saying that I compromised with the wrong. What he is saying that I waited until the right moment comes when you are back so that you could communicate to them on this particular issue and bring them back to the right. And this is exactly what happened. Musa alayhi then talked to Samri, and the Samri then accepted and acknowledged his mistake, and then he basically was held accountable for that. The last one is a very powerful verse, which we are seeing almost in every country and in every generation. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Whosoever ignores our guidance, whosoever ignores our understanding of the reality and our fact-based guidance. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا, it has two meanings. His personal and his collective life would be in difficulty. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا, and his economy would suffer. His financial conditions would suffer. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. The wealth of the world is concentrating in the hands of 4 people. And when these kind of pandemics happen, then a great majority of the people become paupers, become powerless, become totally irrelevant to the society, in the sense that they are unable to find jobs, they are unable to produce anything, they are unable to create anything because they don't have the resources. And what is the impact? The entire economy comes down, not only individually, but also collectively. Those who have those kind of riches may survive for a few more months and may survive for a few more years, but ultimately the whole economy comes down. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leading us to believe. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, if you would not follow the principle of justice, if you would not follow the balance, if you do not follow the ideas of exploring, not destroying an environment, if you will not protect it, you would create conditions that would ultimately destroy you. And this is what we have seen throughout human history, that when people do not take care of their own situation, they are destroyed. And let's go back to the chapter 12 of the Quran, where Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is in charge of the finance ministry. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, based on his understanding of what is happening in the area, it asks people to start storing the grain during the prosperous years, so that when the famine and the drought comes in the next 7 years, they are prepared to deal with that kind of situation. And in that kind of situation, it is not that the money was concentrating in the hands and the resources were concentrating in the hands of few, but they were with the state, and the state was responsible to ensure that each and every person, not only in that area, but outside area, is also supported and also given that kind of help that they needed. So it is in this particular context the Quran is saying, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي وَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Those people who ignore our basic principles of economics, basic principles of development, basic principles, and which is justice, which is that everyone would get the reward of one's labor. And the labor is what the Quran emphasizes. It is not, Quran says that the people should be paid back properly for what they contribute to the society. And the system does not allow that to happen. It does not. But this is not what a believer is saying. This is what the economists have been saying. This is what those people who have been studying the financial things. You cannot justify a CEO earning millions of dollars and a worker who is producing that work and that labor is getting less than $15. I mean, it's not just in America, all over the world. Inna lahu ma'ishatun darka. That you are deviating from the path of God and the laws of God, and you are creating disasters for yourself. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. So we have a question from Sister Nighat, and she is referring to Surah 1894, which says, they said Zulkarnain, Gog and Magog are ruining this land. Will you build a barrier between them and us? So she's asking, can we draw parallels with Gog and Magog and our current COVID-19 situation, an invisible enemy killing people?
Well, when these stories are mentioned, they're mentioned primarily for us to to draw certain conclusions and to understand the conditions in which we are living. What is being said that there would always be invisible and visible people who would try to hurt the average people, who would try to hurt the peaceful people, who try to create conditions for the people, whether it is in the form of people or it is in the form of any calamity. This is going to happen. But the lesson that we are learning from the uh, example of Zulqarnain alayhi salatu wasalam is that people should be empowered to fight those invisible and visible calamities and enemies. So if the leadership, whether religious or political or economic, is mature, it could prepare the people to face eventualities, face all these kind of situations. So what what is being said by the Quran, that the people should be prepared to deal with any kind of crisis, any kind of situation, and it is up to those people who have wise, who have wisdom, who have knowledge, who have you know an insight into what may happen. They should prepare people to do that kind of thing. And it is not just a people who lived in the past. It is something that would have continue to happen until the day of judgment, where human beings would continue to face visible and invisible challenges. And what is being said is that people should be prepared to meet those challenges.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that question and the explanation, Dr. Aslam. So a few verses I wanted you to reflect on, and not just, there are a couple of verses I just wanted to kind of comment on, I think, which were standing out for me. And this is in Surah Kahf 18, verse 99. On that day, we shall let some of them surge against others, and the trumpet will be blown. Then further down in Taha 102, it says, the day when the trumpet is blown. So I was reading a while back that the earlier understanding of the shape of the universe was that it was in a disk form, so bulging in the middle and round. And now the new science says that the shape of the universe is in the form of a trumpet. That means that there was an explosion and then it's coming out. So, you have that shape of the trumpet basically. So that analogy that the Quran talks about the trumpet being blown, and now the modern understanding of the shape of the universe. Of course, this is always kind of shifting, but at least in our time and age, I reflect on that. And in that context, I wanted to point out there is an excellent article by Dr. Humayun Khan. He is a physician, but very interested in astronomy. He wrote this article called The Physics of the Day of Judgment. And if you just type in the physics of the Day of Judgment in any search engine, you should come to it. Or in Islamicity, just search for this, Physics of the Day of Judgment. Anyone interested in astronomy and science and parallels in the Quran will find this interesting. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. It's very useful, this kind of information. It's very useful.
Right. Now, I wanted to get your views on this ayah. It's in Taha, verse 12. Lo, I am thy Lord, so take off thy shoes, for thou art in the holy valley of Tuwa. So I've read that, and so of course, this is referring to Musa alayhi salam when he went to the burning bush and he was on hollow ground, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to take his shoes off. And the Jews, in their worship, they do take their shoes off. And we do the same also. So is there any parallel there? Taking
Yes.
shoes off, entering the masjid.
If we take the literal meaning of the verse, then this is what is implied, that when you go to a place of worship, you should be in a state of absolute purity, and shoes, if you use them in walking the streets and going to places, might have that kind of dirt. So that is one obvious understanding of this particular verse. But the other understanding of this verse is slightly much deeper, that when you come to God and when you present yourself to Him, whether you do it in on Mount Sinai, or you do it in Mecca, or you do it in a mosque, or you do it in your home, be in a state of absolute physical and spiritual purity. Come as innocent person. Come leaving behind all the footsteps that you may have accumulated as a result of your own behavior and your own action. And I think when we look at the Quran, we look not only in the historical context, but also in the universal context. Because there are communities still in our world today that, and there were communities until 100 years ago, when there were no shoes available to people. People were walking barefoot. And many places in our world today have that kind of thing. So it has, I may be wrong, it has much more larger implications, in the sense that leave behind all the footprints that you had accumulated as a result of your actions and all those things. And this is a teaching moment for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to those that you are, whenever you are in the presence of God, whenever you feel that you are communicating with Him, you are in a sacred space. When I am talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either in my home or even in driving and thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am in a sacred space. Even though the space is not the mosque, it is not Mecca, it is not Vatican, it is still a sacred space, because God is beyond space and time.
Excellent. Yeah, so that is very illuminating, I think. Reading beyond taking your shoes off. So what about all of the people in the world who do not have shoes, who go basically barefooted, so they don't even have shoes to take off. So we need to look at that ayah beyond just the physical aspect of the shoes.
In fact, I was looking at some of the devotees in temples in India, and all of them are barefooted, not because they want to, but because they don't have shoes.
Okay, so the last verse I wanted to get your views on is Taha 113. Thus we have revealed it as a literature in Arabic, and we have displayed therein certain threats that are pre-adventure they may keep from evil, or that it may cause them to take heed. And this Arabic scripture, so different translators say Arabic Quran and Arabic tongue, Arabic Quran by Talali Tani, and so Arabic tongue, Arabic language, and often people ask, well, why was it revealed in Arabic? Or people try and come up with various other kind of explanations. So how do we see this verse?
Well, it has to be revealed in some language, because this is how people communicate. And the sign language was not invented at that particular time. So it has to be in some language. It so happened that God chose a person who was born in Arabia, and God chose a person among the people whose language was Arabic. The same way as the language of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam was Arabic, the same way as the language of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was Chaldean, the same way as the language of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was Hebrew, the same way as the language of the Prophet. But what is emphasized here, he said, it's an empirical reality. It's a fact that it was revealed in the Arabic language, but it has message that invites people to reflect on their life and that invites people to think of their future in this world. And so how do you reflect when you understand? So you have the option to understand it in Arabic language, or you can understand it through the translations, through the meanings also. God definitely knew that there would come a time when Google would come up with the translating technology and with the translators who would come up with this translation. And it has made things easier for us now.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Aslam. I enjoy these conversations I have with you. I hope it is beneficial to the others who are listening also. And I invite everyone, that they should look at the Quran, try and understand it in different perspectives. We all have various backgrounds and different specialities. When we come across words, we may look at it differently than other people do. And as we've seen over here, often I come up with various understandings, and Dr. Aslam kind of clarifies that, or he may have a different understanding also. So thank you so much, Dr. Aslam. And
thank you very much. Inshallah, then see you tomorrow. Let's
inshallah.
recite Surah Al-Fatih, Surah Al-Asr. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding of the Quran and open our heart and make us comprehend the message in the manner in which we should comprehend. Subhana rabbika
Ameen.
rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillah.
Ameen.
Thank you.
Assalamu
Thank you.
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.